Hello and welcome to Reinventing Nerds. Today we've got a special guest who's calling in from Switzerland. Kamales Lardi is a digital tech expert, business advisor, speaker, teaching fellow, and an author. She has recently published, I think it's her second book, called The Human Side of Digital Transformation. Kamales is globally recognized as an influencer and thought leader in digital transformation, and she's also been advising multinational companies across a variety of industries in Europe, Asia, and Africa for over a decade. She has both a technical background and a business background, and hopefully she'll share with us a little bit about how both are important in managing digital transformation. So, Kamales, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Joanie. It's a pleasure to join you here today.
Oh, great. I'm so glad to have you. And it's fun having an international guest. We have some from time to time. But let's just dive right in because our listeners tend to be like technical people, a lot of engineers and tech, and we also scientists too. And so I think a lot of them are trying to understand, what's important in the leadership side of things, and so you started out in tech, and I'm curious if you'd give us a little bit about your story, your background, how you came to where you are now with your tech background and sprinkling in the business, I'm sure, too.
Absolutely. Most people, when they meet me, they probably are or would be surprised to hear that I come from a background of programming and coding.
Yeah.
So I did my initial degree in computing and information systems back in the mid to late 90s. And, back then, technology was not as user-friendly as it is today. So coding was definitely hardcore. We used to work with programs like SQL, and, it was really at the beginnings of technology development towards business application. And I got into that field almost by accident. It just seemed interesting to me, and I went into it, and I found that I had an affinity for coding, computational thinking, structured thinking, breaking problems down into kind of smaller pieces, and logical thinking and solution development. I absolutely enjoyed it, and I was so passionate about it. And the first couple of years of my career was with Accenture. Back then, they were known as Anderson Consulting. Mm-hmm. And I did quite a lot of technology implementation for large corporates and worked with basically IT teams and tech leaders. And what I realized very quickly within a couple of years is that I needed to have more of a deeper understanding for how businesses work. Because at the end of the day, technology is an enabler. But we need to really have a clear value proposition and a clear application for it, and a clear understanding for how business value can be derived. So I decided to go and pursue an MBA, a Master in Business Administration in the UK. So I traveled from Malaysia, where I'm originally from, to the UK and did my MBA. And this is where I started to expand on my knowledge around business and management, basically. I did meet my very Swiss husband there at university, which is why I ended up in Switzerland. And I've spent the last 23 years really supporting organizations and enabling companies in application of technology for business value. So I think this area that I've been in terms of combining the technical technology background and having these hardcore knowledge of programming and business and programming and tech development, as well as business knowledge, has allowed me to support organizations over the years in understanding how technology can help accelerate business value.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And, I guess one of the things that I'm really picking up on is that having been in that world, right? Having been a programmer and working in tech, not just like with tech, but being in it, you understand and probably even have some of the mindset, of the tech, like you said, the logical, rational, some of these analytical characteristics. And I feel like a lot of the technical people have that mindset. So how do you help them appreciate the bigger picture, the business strategy, getting outside of the tech? Because that's so exciting for so many people, the tech itself. So how do you get them thinking bigger?
I think one of the key elements is really looking at application of tech. And a lot of times when I work with organizations, we do tend to collaborate closely with technology teams, internal IT teams, as well as tech solution providers. And one of the things that, and also with startups, I've worked quite a bit with startups as a startup mentor. And one thing that I find consistently across the board with these teams is the view on technology as a silver bullet solution, the thing that solves the problems. And I think one of the key things that I try to communicate to these teams is really, it's not a silver bullet solution, it's an enabler. You have to first understand two core elements. One is the customer base, the people who are using technology, and really having a strong understanding for how people use technology. What is this kind of market problem that you're solving? And the other element is how to implement it successfully within organizations. Couple of examples I can give when those things are not thought of by tech teams.
Yeah.
For example, implementing a tech solution within an organization, if you don't get the users buy-in, if you don't understand how people use technology solutions, and you implement something or you force something into an environment, people tend to fall back into their own habits. And so something I found very early on in my career was people within organizations, if they are not bought into the tech solution that's being implemented, they do tend to create a shadow organization structure. So that defeats the purpose of having the tech solution in the first place. And I do detail a story about this in the book as well, where I talk about an organization where we implemented a tech solution. It was quite a large core system replacement. And we found that the reason we implemented the system was to improve productivity. And we found that it actually doubled the time required by people to perform this function. After some investigation, we realized very quickly that the people were actually using the system at the end of the day. So they created a shadow organization structure. They fell back into the traditional way of doing things. And they were using the new system for data entry at the end of the day to transfer the information required onto the new system. So that actually doubled the amount of time required. So these types of things really convinced me that there needs to be a very strong bridge between technology implementers, tech teams, and the people using it, so whether it's your customer base or your internal organization. Hence, that drove me to write the book, the human side of digital business transformation, because I wanted to really marry these two elements together and provide a guide or a kind of a playbook for organizations on how to do transformation well.
That's excellent. And you know what? I do want to talk about your book because I read it and I found it extremely interesting. And the examples you're talking about, like you just talked about one, but the book is just full of examples from cover to cover about good examples, bad examples, what can go wrong, what can go well. And I think one of the things that was really interesting, I mean, for me, because I'm biased right from my perspective, but I think also from the perspective of people who are listening and viewing this podcast, is that it talks so much. It's called the human side, right, of the digital transformation, right? But the managing change, motivating people, like communicating, all these kind of things, organizational culture, they're all throughout the book. Tell us a little bit about what is the human side of the business, the digital transformation there.
This is actually really exciting for me to talk about because I've worked with companies, across regions, across industries. I've advised different levels within the organization, from C-level right down to implementation teams. And it's really exciting to see organizations embrace digital because there's so much potential. So when we talk about digital transformation, and to clarify, digital transformation has existed for a long while. I mean, we all know this, right? It's existed since we've started using technology in the business environment. It's not a new concept, but it has received quite a lot of focus over the last couple of years or the last decade or so, simply because technology development has accelerated and the potential capabilities of technology has accelerated in recent years. So companies have spent so much time and energy and effort on the digital part of digital transformation, which is really what technology should we implement, what kind of tech solutions should be put in place to accelerate our business. The potential of technology can definitely create exponential development, whether it is in exponential growth or scale or hyper-personalization of interactions with customers. There's so much potential from tech. The transformation part has received far less focus. And this is really the element where you take your organization on a journey to prepare it for to be successful in the digital economy, in the digital future. And this transformation part, a lot of that involves taking the people within your organization on a journey towards this future success, creating this solid foundation in your company that allows the technology solutions to really provide the outcomes that we're looking for. And this is what fascinated me quite a bit. When we look at this transformation journey, it's not just about it's not just about change management. And I do talk about this in the book as well, the comparison between change management and culture management, and how it falls short of what actually is needed in an organization. We look at creating an ecosystem of people, ecosystem of players that help the organization really become successful in the digital future. No individual organization is going to be successful on its own. This ecosystem environment is what's going to help companies stand out. And this is really your internal ecosystem of business owners, management teams, as well as employees, and your external ecosystem of players, for example, customers, but also service providers, partners, collaborators, educational institutions, all of these different players coming together to create an ecosystem of business that's going to help companies become successful in the future. And we're seeing companies, even in today's environment, that are creating this ecosystem, that are going to be truly successful, that are already demonstrating success. Mm-hmm. And this is where I find digital transformation truly bringing value in a business.
Well, I think the ecosystem is really interesting because it's not just a top-down initiative. It sounds like, from reading, what I understood was, it's not like communication starts at the top and you just sort of force it down through the ranks. You're talking about more of having key players all over the organization in different places. And so that changes a little bit about the hierarchy, but maybe just having people have more buy-in across the organization to end up making that change would be have a lot more impact.
It's not just buy-in, right? If we think about the different players, they have different roles within the ecosystem as well. So leadership teams and business owners and board members, they are tasked to drive transformation, to trigger, to initiate, and to navigate that transformation effort. Employees are not just focused on applying and using technology solutions, but they also need to advocate for those technology solutions. They need to be bought in, and they need to be the ones telling everyone else, you've got to use this because it's fantastic, right? That's the advocacy we're looking for. We're looking for as well customers are already triggering this shift. Most people across most industries that use any kind of product or service are looking for some form of digitization in the way they interact and communicate with organizations, as well as in the way they acquire services and products, and the way they use any kind of product or service in the market. And of course, we have then partners, suppliers, collaborators that are helping us develop the solutions, helping organizations build the solutions that we need. All of these players have to come together with a shared purpose of developing solutions that bring value to the market. And that's where we find real digital transformation creating value.
Okay, so when you're saying this and people are like really excited about the new technology and the digital, I'm picturing generational divides. Right. How do you experience that, and what kind of things come up and ideas do you have to help bridge those generational gaps?
I do cover this in the book because I found this extremely fascinating, and it's an element that I feel companies do tend to talk about, but they don't deep dive enough into it. The generational divide that we're talking about are these different generation of people that are coming up with different value systems that are demanding different things from companies. If you think about our parents' generation, or even our generation, the baby boomers and the Gen Xers, we've always focused on stability. We focused on job security, creating, getting that job and then creating a career path for ourselves within organizations. Now, if we think about the generation that came after us, the millennials, they triggered this shift in mindset of starting to find more meaningful work, working towards higher purpose, and looking for organizations that provide this higher purpose, climate change, for example, or even looking at creating psychological safety. The interesting thing that we saw was during the COVID pandemic, this this value system became exponentiated. We saw a lot more people start to realize traditional work environments were not creating this or not giving them this satisfaction that they were looking for. They started to look for something bigger, something brighter on the other side of the fence. The new generation of people, my daughter, for example, she's we're going into the Gen Zs and the Alphas now. My daughter's 12. And if I look at the way she operates, for example, and her group of friends and her classmates and all of them, she's got, for example, a TikTok account that she started a month ago, where she creates videos. She's done about 20 videos. She has over 9,000 followers, and she has over 34,000 likes on those videos.
Wow.
It comes so easily to them because they are the generation that were born and bred in the digital space. Mm-hmm. It's a natural way of being for them. It's not even a question. And so if I compare that to the organizations that exist, how organizations motivate people, the kinds of work that they expect people to do, the hours that people work, the satisfaction that organizations create for employees, there is a disconnect. And this new generation of people, the Gen Zs and the Alphas, they're demanding something more from companies. And companies have been falling short if we look at the tech layoffs that have been happening recently. And just to say, this new generation of people, they know that there is an alternative. They've experienced it at a very young age. You don't have to go into a 9-to-5 job in a big organization. You can have a side gig. You can create a revenue base even without formal education. This is a given for them. You can create wealth. You can build knowledge, financial knowledge. There's no need to go into that traditional pathway. This is going to become a major threat for traditional organizations.
Yeah, and that will be another disruption there to
Absolutely.
deal with. Yeah. Wow, that is interesting. So that the power is shifted a little bit too, from the employer to the employee. Saying actually we want more from the employer. It isn't just about us being desperate to earn a living. We can do that other ways. We need to actually find something that fulfills us to be a part of this company. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that power shift is triggering companies to start thinking about new working models. And this is part of digital transformation. Even today, companies that hire in people in their late 20s or even mid 30s, the key question that I've heard people ask in interviews: what kind of technology solutions do you have? Do you have a work from home capabilities? Can I bring my own device? And these are basic questions that some companies still struggle with. Mm-hmm. And so this transformation and this accessibility and the ability to cater to new working models, this is something that companies need to start focusing on. And this is a big part of digital transformation as well.
Okay. I have one question that I've just been on the edge of my seat waiting to ask you. And I think we've finally gotten there. We're talking about the tech so much. We're talking about new ways of doing things. All right. The biggest thing at the moment is AI, right? Artificial intelligence, right? Everyone's talking about ChatGPT and all these things, right? So, you talk about in your book the convergence of humans and technology. So how is that happening? Like, how is tech affecting humanity?
I think the one of the biggest things that's happened is particularly with the wake of social media, right? That was the trigger point for me, particularly. Mm-hmm. We arrived at a point where technology was triggering not only a change in behavior, but a change in mindset as well. Mm-hmm. If you think about social media, what's happened in the past 15 years with social, it's triggered a way for people to communicate and interact with one another across borders, across boundaries, across beliefs. And it's triggered a way to not only communicate with one another, but also shift mindsets, shift perceptions. And we've seen quite a lot of that happen. Now, add to that the element of artificial intelligence or smart technologies, where you can actually exponentiate this. So in the book, I do come from, and I have to qualify this. I am a technology optimist. So I believe very much in the transformative capabilities of tech, the good in tech. I think there's so much that the tech solutions today, emerging technology, can provide for humanity. And I'm really excited about these solutions coming out. If you think about financial services, healthcare, and so on. But there's also a darker side if we don't apply technology well. And we're seeing this happen in the business world where the trends, the cycle of trends. So last year, it was all about the metaverse. The year before that, it was all about blockchain and crypto. And this year, it's all about ChatGPT and AI. And so we're seeing these cycles of trends come up, the hype cycle. What I find very interesting is new technologies, things like AI-based solutions can augment our capabilities as people. And the way I look at it from a very positive perspective is it can help take away the redundant, repetitive work, automate and speed those up. It can help create hyper-personalized experiences at scale. And this can augment the experiences people have with interactions with technology, with companies, with brands. And allow us as humans to focus on the complex interactions, the interactions that require emotional and, the kind of human interactions. And we can focus and deepen those interactions. And this I find exciting, not only from a kind of, even from a business perspective. If you think about how organizations interact with customers today, we can take away a lot of the redundant interaction points like payment points and things like that, and focus on customer service that is really on a human level, really catered to hyper-personalized experiences. And I think this is very, very positive. What we're seeing in the news cycles, though, businesses tend to jump on the hype and think about ChatGPT, for example, as the silver bullet solution for everything. It isn't that. If you really start to use it, it's starting to come out now, it's not as intelligent as people make it out to be. It's not going to replace people all that quickly. It's an element that augments our capability. I would say if you're doing copywriting, for example, ChatGPT could accelerate that work up to 40% as it is today. But you still need 60% of human capabilities to bring insights and to bring knowledge and experience into that content to make it really valuable for the market. And so I think used in the right way, technology can really help augment and bring us to a point where we can converge with it to a certain extent that it adds more value to our interactions, but not necessarily replace that humanity.
Right. And I also like that way you're talking a little bit about the dark side. I mean, one of the things I look at is the dark side of leadership or of humans. Not you're talking about the dark side of technology, which I think would stem from the dark side of humans, right? Coming in to use technology for bad instead of for good. But your ecosystem seems like that would have some checks and balances. I mean, if there's so many touch points with humans that you would be getting that feedback to realize, maybe this isn't being used for good because people are reacting. We need to keep it in a way that's beneficial to humans.
I think that's an excellent point, Joanie. And this is the whole point of that ecosystem. It's almost kind of a self-regulating environment.
Yeah.
So whatever is being developed and created, decisions that are being made come out for the benefit of all within that environment. But it also depends, and I think this is a key element, it depends on who is within this ecosystem. If you have a homogeneous team, a non-diverse team of people, you're still going to end up with some challenges at the end of the day. And this is where diversity in innovation, diversity in digital transformation and tech becomes so incredibly important.
Yeah, exactly. And right. So, actually one of the questions I was going to ask you a little bit about was the diversity, but also how about women in tech specifically? I mean, where do women sit?
I still think there is a, I came up in the tech industry since the 90s, as I mentioned. Mm-hmm. A lot has changed since then.
Yeah.
So, I've seen a significant shift in terms of not only in terms of the number of women involved. And to be clear, we've always had very impactful women in the industry, even, from the very beginning since the 70s and 80s. But the focus on them, I think the recognition of the impact that women have made in the industry has increased. The system has changed slightly. There's been a lot more focus on how do we get more women into the space. There's been a lot of focus around creating environments that are conducive for diversity, but there's still a long way to go. I think there's still a significant gap. It is still very challenging, particularly the higher up you move within an organization. There is still a significant gap. And one of the key things that I experience personally as well is the higher up you go, the stronger the bias is towards the role that women can play, not only in tech, but also in business. This is still there. It's it's something that I hope to shift over time, and I hope to work with more women to shift that space and shift that perception. And I think this, I'm quite optimistic and positive about the direction we're heading in, but there's still a lot of work to be done there. Organizations need to not just they not just talk the talk, but walk the talk in terms of creating an environment that attracts women, but also sustains them in those environments. And the sustaining part is a lot more challenging than than most people expect. Because if you come in as a woman into an environment that is non-diverse, there's very little impact that you can have, because you are, at the end of the day, outnumbered. And with tech solutions, tech development, it is so critical to have this diversity, because the solutions that you're building need to cater to a broader group of people, a broader community of global people. And that means bringing in different types of people who have a perception of what are, if you have a homogeneous team, if I explain it another way, then you have blind spots, because just naturally, you're not going to be able to see things that other people are able to see and experience. So the only way to resolve this, particularly if we think about transformative solutions like algorithms and which is pretty much in everything that we do today, as well as AI-based solutions that could have huge impacts on business and our lives, you need people in there who can open up these blind spots. So I'm quite passionate about this, as you can see.
Yeah, no, I mean, huge business case for diversity, as well as every other reason you can imagine. But even just for the business, I think that it's compelling, and a huge blind spot if people aren't employing diversity, because trying to understand the different perspectives and who your customers are, right? It's not going to reach them if you don't.
And
really
one of the things that concerns me with the recent tech layoffs that's been happening in the past, 3-4 months, I don't think any of the companies are even looking at the layoffs from the diversity lens. It's probably the last thing on their mind. And if you think about, just statistically, the groups of people within those tech companies, it is the lower levels that are getting laid off. And in those levels, you do tend to find more of the diversity rather than at the higher levels in the organization. So it is concerning, because we are losing this knowledge base and we are losing this diversity within those tech companies. And with the existing environment, we do find lots of people have options as well, especially if you have tech skills. You can go and create a side gig and a different kind of revenue source. There's no need to go back into these environments. So there is a certain concern for me that we're losing a lot of this key innovative thinking and the differentiators that could be impactful for the tech solutions that are being built.
Wow, I love it though that you have an optimistic outlook and some solutions in the book and also in your consulting, I imagine. So, Kamales, how can people reach you? How would you like them to reach you?
I am available pretty much on most social channels, but I'm very active on Twitter, Cam Lardi, and I'm very active on LinkedIn as well, so they can search for my name. And my book is available pretty much worldwide at the moment. So if you go to kamaleslardi.com on my website, you have links to sales points across the world and e-commerce points. And it's now available on Audible as well, so I'm quite excited about that.
Yeah, I saw that. I like reading instead of listening, but a lot of people I know are listening now, especially during their commutes. So again, the human side of digital business transformation, available wherever books are sold, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, I just want to thank you so much for being a guest. I mean, we kind of talked about a whole bunch of things. And do you have any final words that you'd like our listeners and viewers to take away?
I think one of the key things to remember is digital transformation comes from people transformation. And I'd like to encourage leadership teams, particularly, to take an opportunity to look at themselves, the way they lead organizations. There is a shift happening, and the styles of leadership need to shift as well along with that. And so this would be one area where I'd like to encourage leadership teams to kind of adopt a new mindset and shift the way they lead organizations as well. And it's been a real pleasure to join you here today, Joanie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kamales. It's been a lot of fun. And thanks to our listeners and viewers. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. And we'll see you next time on Reinventing Nerds.